Single black dad drives his drunk boss home after the company party. When she wakes up, Eric Williams had never much liked company parties, and this one was no different, except that tonight he felt like a man forced to wear a smile that didn't quite fit. All while watching 100 colleagues slowly forget how to stand straight or speak in complete sentences. The hall was rented, tastefully lit, the music too loud for actual conversation but perfect for laughter that rang a little hollow if you listened too long. He stood by the far wall with a sweating glass of ginger ale in his hand, no ice now, it had melted hours ago, and scanned the clusters of colleagues who jostled and shrieked with the reckless abandon of people who wouldn't be the ones cleaning up the spilled champagne tomorrow. Eric was a patient man, though. Years of single fatherhood had taught him that. He had learned to hold his tongue, to save his temper for real emergencies, to wait out the storms because Marcus, his 10-year-old with bright eyes and too many questions, needed a father who could be steady when the world wasn't. Tonight, Marcus was at home with Mrs. Klein from next door. Eric tried not to think about the extra money that babysitting would cost him. Across the room, Vanessa Carter, his boss, held court like a queen in exile. She was laughing too loudly, head tilted back so her hair spilled like a curtain of gold, eyes glittering in the shifting colored lights. She wasn't small exactly, but she always managed to make herself seem bigger, a presence that commanded attention even when she wasn't speaking. Tonight, though, it was obvious she was drinking too much. Her face was too flushed. Her voice slipped a little too easily from polished business talk to the raw edge of someone who forgot she was still in charge. Eric watched her from a distance, uneasy. He respected Vanessa. She was tough, often unyielding in meetings, but never unfair. She promoted him when no one else would have. She never pretended not to notice his work. Now he watched as she let one of the account managers pour her another glass of champagne, even as she swayed slightly, lips curving into a sloppy, dazzling smile that didn't look quite right on her normally severe face. Eric checked his watch. Almost 10. He sighed. He wanted to go home. Wanted to be the dad who read stories before bed. But he stayed. Because it was the right thing to do. Near the bar, he heard Vanessa laugh too loud at something one of her flatterers whispered in her ear. She slapped the man's arm hard enough to make him wince, then nearly dropped her glass. Eric flinched. He watched her wave them off when someone offered to call her a car. "I have a driver tonight," she slurred. "Your driver left hours ago," someone said. She squinted at them. "He wouldn't leave. He's paid." "I saw him go," the other insisted. "Well, he's fired." Her voice cracked at the end, a thin little edge of something almost childish. Eric pushed himself off the wall. He was tired of watching. When he reached her, she was struggling with her phone, trying to unlock it with shaking fingers. "Let me help you," he said quietly. "Eric." She brightened, blinking at him with unfocused cheer. "You're always so serious. It's weird." "Smile. Let me call you a car." "No. I'm fine. Just fine. You can't drive yourself. I don't need you to babysit me." "I'm not your babysitter," he said, voice level but firm. "Good. Because you're no fun." She dropped the phone entirely. Eric caught it before it hit the floor. He held it out to her. She stared at it. "What's the password?" "It's your face," he said dryly. She burst out laughing, high and slightly manic. "My face. That's a good joke." "It's not a joke. That's how it works." Eric. You're funny when you're trying not to be. You know that." He exhaled. "Vanessa. Let me drive you home." She squinted at him, brows scrunching up. "You don't want to?" "No." "Then why would you?" "Because someone should." She went quiet then. Her mouth trembled. He thought he saw the hint of tears, but it might have been the light. She didn't answer. She just let him guide her toward the door. A few people watched them leave. Eric heard snickers. He ignored them. Outside the hall, the night was cold, the pavement wet with recent rain. He helped her into his old sedan. The interior smelled faintly of takeout and the crayon drawings Marcus had stuffed into the glove box. Vanessa wrinkled her nose. Smells like kid. That's because I have one. She slumped back in the seat. Right? Right? Single dad. I forgot. Most people do. Why would you stay? What? Tonight. Why did you stay so late? He turned the key in the ignition, headlights flaring. Because I saw you needed help. I don't need anything. Sure. Don't patronize me. I wouldn't dare. She let out a broken laugh that dissolved into a hiccup. God, Eric. You're impossible. Buckle your seatbelt. She blinked at him, dazed. You're bossy. Buckle. Or I'm not going anywhere. She struggled with it, swearing under her breath. He reached over finally and clicked it into place. Their eyes met for one awkward second. She looked away first. He drove in silence for blocks, the city sliding by in sheets of light and shadow. Vanessa's breathing slowed. She pressed her face to the window. My house is too big, she murmured finally. It's stupid. Empty. All the lights on. No one there. It's nice though. You've seen it. Company photos. Holiday cards. Ah, PR. So fake. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. She fell asleep before they reached her neighborhood. When he pulled up in front of her house, a modern, sprawling thing with perfect landscaping and motion lights that clicked on to reveal its angles in clean brilliance, she was out cold. He sat there for a moment, engine idling, listening to her breathing. Then he killed the lights. Got out. Opened her door. He lifted her carefully, mindful of her designer dress and the expensive coat slipping off one shoulder. She stirred but didn't wake. He carried her up the steps, balanced her against one hip while he fumbled with her phone to open the smart lock. Inside, the house smelled of eucalyptus candles and cold marble. Empty. He laid her on the long white sofa, tucked the coat over her like a blanket, found a glass in her pristine kitchen, filled it with water, set it on the table in front of her. He wrote on a post-it in blocky, careful letters. I drove you home. You were safe. Eric. He lingered in the doorway a moment, watching her sleep, one arm flung over her eyes, mascara smeared, mouth parted in something almost like relief. He shook his head, turned off the lights, let himself out, and drove home alone, thinking of his boy waiting up for him and of the strange, empty quiet that seemed to follow him even after the car doors closed. Vanessa Carter woke slowly, blearily, with the unsteady sense that she had been dropped into someone else's life, her eyelids gummed together, mouth tasting of stale champagne and regret, head pounding with the relentless, merciless tempo of her own heartbeat. It was too bright. Someone had opened the curtains. Except no, she realized as her eyes finally pried themselves open. It was just the huge floor-to-ceiling windows letting in the indifferent gray of dawn, highlighting the polished floors and the sleek minimalist lines of furniture she'd once thought elegant but now looked cold, clinical, empty. She lay there, twisted ungracefully on the long white sofa, one arm flung across her face, coat half falling to the floor. Her phone was beside her head, a glass of water on the coffee table, and a square yellow post-it note that seemed to glare at her with more judgment than any person possibly could. She pushed herself upright, squinting at the note until the letters swam into sense. I drove you home. You were safe. Eric. Her stomach twisted. Not just from the hangover. From memory. Fuzzy images crashed back with queasy clarity. Laughing too loud. Forgetting how to stand. Dropping her phone. Eric's steady voice irritatingly calm while she tried to shoo him off. She groaned, pressed her palms to her eyes. God, Vanessa, you absolute train wreck. She forced herself off the couch, feet hitting the cold floor. Her knees almost buckled. She caught herself on the edge of the glass table. Took 2 steadying breaths. She picked up the water, drained half of it in desperate gulps, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. The room was silent, almost painfully so. She listened to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside. No voices. No laughter. Just her own ragged breathing. She sat back down, crumpling slightly. Ran a shaking hand through her hair. She didn't cry. Not Vanessa Carter. She didn't do that, but her eyes burned. She felt them well. She refused to let it spill. Her phone chimed. A calendar reminder. Conference call at 9. She snorted bitterly. Of course. She glanced at the clock on the wall, 7:45. She had time. She didn't want time. Time was dangerous. Time let her remember. She forced herself to stand again, trudged toward the bedroom, stripped off the crumpled cocktail dress, showered in water so hot it turned her skin pink, scrubbing hard like she could erase the shame. When she emerged, wrapped in a thick white robe, she sat on the edge of her bed staring at the rug. The note was still in her hand, a small, damning piece of evidence. I drove you home. You were safe. She read it over and over. Her throat closed. Because no one had ever said that to her before. Not safe. She dressed in dark slacks and a pale blouse. Understated jewelry. Hair pinned back severely to hide any tremble in her hands. Wore paint. Mask. She looked at herself in the mirror. She could see the edges of last night. Bloodshot eyes. Smudges she hadn't cleaned well enough. A woman who wanted so badly to be untouchable and instead had let herself be seen at her weakest. She left the house without breakfast. She didn't bother to lock it behind her. The smart system would handle that. She just couldn't stand being in there another second. The office was quiet when she arrived. Early. She liked early. It let her avoid the chatter, the pity, the curiosity. But today felt different, because she knew he would be there. Eric. Always on time. Steady. Reliable. Impossible to rattle. She hated that about him. She needed people she could control. He wasn't one of them. She paused outside her own glass-walled office. Saw him through the door. He was talking to Angela from HR, nodding gravely at something she said, holding a tablet in one broad hand. His suit was cheap but pressed. His shoes shined. He looked like he belonged here even though half the senior team pretended he didn't. Angela left, offering Vanessa a wary smile as she passed. Vanessa ignored her. She pushed the door open and stood there, framed in light. Eric looked up. Expression unreadable. He set the tablet down. Good morning, he said evenly. She didn't answer right away. Her throat felt too tight. Finally she managed. Eric, can we talk? He nodded. Stepped aside. Of course. She closed the door quietly behind her. Leaned against it for a second longer than she meant to. He watched but didn't comment. She pushed herself upright. Walked past him to stand behind her desk. A barrier. She needed it. About last night, she began. Her voice was hoarse. She cleared it. I owe you. I owe you an apology. He didn't move. Didn't interrupt. Just waited. I was unprofessional. Out of control. She hesitated. Looked down at her immaculate desk. At the calendar she wouldn't admit she color-coded to feel in control of anything. I embarrassed myself. And worse, I put you in a position you never should have been in. Eric's voice was low, calm, but not unkind. I didn't mind. She barked a humorless laugh. Don't make it easy for me. I hate that. He raised an eyebrow. All right. You were sloppy. You scared some people. You made me worry you'd try to drive yourself home drunk. It was reckless. She flinched. He didn't stop. And you made me make a choice. Either let you ruin your life or step in. Her eyes burned again. But I'm glad I did. He finished quietly. Because you got home safe. That's all I wanted. She pressed her lips together so hard they whitened. Fought back the tremor in her chin. You don't have to be kind about this. I'm not being kind, he said gently. I'm being honest. Silence fell between them, thick as concrete. Vanessa sat slowly in her chair. Looked at him with naked exhaustion. I don't know how to say thank you in a way that doesn't sound stupid. Eric shrugged. You just did. She swallowed hard. Her voice dropped. Will you? Can you sit? For a minute? Please? He hesitated, then sat, big frame folding carefully into the visitor's chair across from her. She stared at her hands on the desk, finally looked up, eyes glassy but steady. Tell me what you want, for this not to be weird. He let out a slow breath, met her eyes levelly. Honestly, I just want us to act like adults. Talk if you want. Ignore it if you want. But don't pretend it didn't happen. I don't do pretending well. She let out a long, shaky breath, almost a laugh. But sad. That might be the first honest conversation I've had in months. Eric's expression softened. He nodded once, firm, certain, and she realized with a dull thud of recognition that he wasn't just her employee. He was the only person in the entire building who didn't seem to want anything from her except the truth. Vanessa didn't move for a long time after Eric fell silent. She sat behind the gleaming slab of her executive desk, elbows resting lightly on the edge, fingers laced together so tightly her knuckles were pale, and when she finally spoke, her voice was low and unsteady, the polished corporate mask cracking just enough to let something fragile slip through. You know, she said slowly, not looking at him, eyes fixed instead on the inlaid grain of the desk as if it held answers. I spent half of last night laughing at people I can't stand, pretending I thought they were hilarious. Letting them hand me drinks I didn't even want because God forbid I let them see that none of them are really my friends. Eric didn't interrupt. He just listened, leaning forward slightly, big hands resting calmly on his knees. Dark eyes steady and patient, the way he looked when Marcus was upset and needed quiet more than answers. Vanessa took a shuddering breath. I always thought if I was the one in charge, if I could call the shots, I'd never have to do that. Smile when I didn't want to. Laugh when I felt like screaming. But it's worse. It's so much worse. Because they expect it. She swallowed hard. Her throat clicked in the quiet office. And last night I didn't want to try anymore. I wanted to forget all of it. And I let it get ugly. Eric's voice, when it came, was careful, even. You had a bad night. It doesn't make you a bad person. She snorted, eyes flashing up at him. Don't do that. Do what? Patronize me. I'm not a child. I know exactly what it looked like. I humiliated myself in front of half my department and forced you, someone who has actual responsibilities at home, to drag me out like I was dead weight. She paused, breathing hard. Her eyes glistened. I'm sorry. Eric didn't blink. Didn't shift. I didn't see you as dead weight. Then what did you see? She demanded, voice cracking. He shrugged, slow and deliberate. Someone who needed help. That's it. She let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. Pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not entirely hostile. Like two people on opposite sides of a river, watching the same dark water flow by. Eric's voice came again, low, almost gentle. Vanessa. Look, you're my boss. But you're also just a person. You have bad days. I have them too. We all do. The difference is most of us get to have them in private. You don't. That's not fair. But it's the truth. She blinked rapidly. Her lip trembled. You're annoyingly perceptive, you know that. Occupational hazard of being a single dad, he said, voice warming just slightly. Meaning? He spread his hands. Meaning I spend half my life watching my kid try to hide things he's feeling, so I got good at reading people. You're not that hard to read, Vanessa. You act tough, but you're just tired. That broke something in her. Her eyes overflowed, tears spilling freely now. She didn't try to hide it anymore. She just let them fall, silently leaving dark spots on the pale wood of the desk. Eric didn't move. Didn't offer a tissue. Didn't try to fix it. He just let her cry. After a long while, she wiped her face on the heel of her hand. Her mascara was ruined. Her hair had fallen out of its immaculate twist, strands curling damply against her flushed cheek. She looked less like a powerful executive and more like a woman who hadn't slept enough in weeks. Do you know what it's like? She whispered, voice rough. To have everyone waiting for you to fail? Yeah, he said softly. She blinked at him, startled. You do. He nodded once. Single black dad working his way up from maintenance to management? You'd be surprised how many people assume you're gonna screw it up eventually. So yeah, I get it. She let out a slow, shaking breath. Eric. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For not letting me fall on my face. Technically, I did let you fall asleep on your face, he said, and his mouth twitched. Despite herself, she barked a wet laugh. She wiped her eyes again, shaking her head. You're impossible. So I've been told. She looked at him seriously, calmer now. You didn't have to do it. Any of it. You could have left me there. He didn't smile, not really. That's not how I was raised. She nodded slowly. You're a better person than I am. He finally leaned back. No, just a person who had to learn some things the hard way. Same as you. Silence settled again, but it was different this time. Not brittle. Not tense. Something like understanding. She took a deep breath. Sat up straighter. Eric, I want you to know I don't see you as just a facilities manager. You're part of this team. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like you weren't. He looked at her a long moment, then nodded once. Thank you. That means a lot. They sat there, breathing, existing. Two people trying to figure out how to be real in a place that rewarded pretending. She finally broke the silence with a shaky exhale. So, what now? He lifted an eyebrow. Coffee? She actually laughed. A real one this time. God, yes? Please. He got up, moved toward the door, paused, looked back at her. Cream and sugar? She wiped her face with her palm, smiled despite everything. Just black. I need to feel alive today. Coming right up. She watched him go. Her heart a strange, unfamiliar tangle of relief and something else she didn't want to name. Vanessa slumped in her chair when he was gone, exhaled, closed her eyes. For the first time in too long, she didn't feel quite so alone. The next week was different in ways that were subtle at first, so subtle no one else in the office seemed to notice, but Eric did, and so did Vanessa. He would catch her watching him in meetings, her eyes narrowed thoughtfully, not with suspicion, but with something closer to curiosity, as if she were finally seeing a man she'd worked beside for years but never really met. And he watched her too. Watched how she forced herself to listen more than she talked. How she hesitated before delivering a scathing comment she might have made without thinking before. How she tried, however awkwardly, to show she wasn't as cold as her reputation. They didn't talk about the party. Not out loud. But it lingered in the spaces between them like the scent of rain on warm pavement, impossible to ignore. One morning, she found him in the break room carefully stirring sugar into the cheap coffee machine's approximation of cappuccino, Marcus's crayon drawing tucked carefully in his breast pocket. She paused at the door, watched him for a moment, then cleared her throat. He turned, eyebrow raised. Morning. She hesitated. That your son's art? He looked down, smiled, pulled the paper out so she could see. A superhero with huge muscles, a cape, a big smiling face with dad in uneven letters across the chest. Yeah, he says that's me. She studied it, smiled a little. He's got a good eye for character. Eric huffed a laugh. Yeah, he does. She poured her own coffee in silence, frowned at the taste. This is terrible. Company budget. I make 7 times your salary and drink the same sludge. Equality in action. Capitalism at its finest, he said, deadpan. She laughed. A real one, surprised and a little helpless. He grinned. After that, they fell into something like an understanding. She started asking his opinion on things no one had ever consulted him about. Not just maintenance issues, but staff morale, team conflicts, even event planning. He'd blink. Think. Answer carefully. She listened. Really listened. One afternoon, he found her at her desk, head in her hands. He knocked gently on the doorframe. "You okay?" She didn't look up right away. "Just tired. It never ends." "That's work." "It's not just work." She finally lifted her face, eyes red. "It's being the one everyone expects to have the answers." He nodded slowly. "You don't have to have them all. Tell that to the board. Tell that to yourself first." She snorted, but there was no real humor. "I don't know how." He stepped inside, set a paper cup of coffee on her desk. "Black. No sugar." She stared at it, then at him. "How did you remember?" "Not that hard." She picked it up, held it like it was precious. "They didn't say thank you." "Didn't need to." On Friday, there was a small birthday party for Angela from HR. Someone brought a cheap cake. They all sang, off-key and awkward. Eric clapped with the rest, smiling for real when Angela blew out her candles. Vanessa stood near the back, watching. Afterward, she approached him by the window. "Your kid like cake?" He quirked an eyebrow. "He's a kid." She actually smiled. "Right? Dumb question." She cleared her throat, fidgeted with her sleeve. "I was thinking, there's this community event next weekend. Face painting bounce houses. I thought maybe you want to bring him? Company's paying for tickets. For employees' families. Didn't know if you'd heard." Eric blinked. "No, I hadn't." "Well, consider this your invitation." He watched her carefully. "You going?" She hesitated. "I hadn't planned on it." "Why not?" "I don't really do well at those things. Might surprise you. Might humiliate me." He shrugged. "I'll be there. Marcus will be there. You wouldn't be alone." She exhaled, bit her lip, nodded once. "Okay. Okay." They didn't say anything else. But when he turned to leave, she called after him. "Eric?" "Yeah?" She held his gaze, voice quieter than he'd ever heard it. "I'm glad you're here." He smiled. "A small, real thing." "Me too." That night, he picked up Marcus from Mrs. Klein's, listened to his son ramble about dinosaurs and math and a new friend at school, and thought about his boss, his complicated flawed, unexpectedly human boss, alone in her big empty house. He wondered if she'd ever had anyone pick her up from anywhere. He wondered if she'd ever had anyone who wanted to. He tucked Marcus in, read a chapter from the space adventure book they were working through, smoothed his hair back as the boy yawned and blinked sleepily. "Daddy?" "Yeah, bud. You're the best." Eric swallowed, pressed a kiss to his forehead. "So are you." He turned off the light and sat in the dark a moment longer than usual, thinking about promises, about responsibility, about the strange places kindness could take you if you let it. Saturday morning arrived on a breeze scented with cut grass and city exhaust. The air too warm for October, but crisp enough that Eric told Marcus to bring a jacket anyway. He watched his son try to negotiate, wrinkling his nose and insisting he wouldn't need a finally stuffing it into his backpack only after Eric raised an eyebrow in silent dad authority. They got on the subway, Marcus bouncing in his seat, asking questions about bounce houses, face paint, cotton candy, and what would happen if you threw up in a bouncy castle. Eric tried not to laugh. When they arrived at the community event, a municipal green ringed with colorful tents and tables, corporate banners discreetly placed so the company could say, "We care." Marcus practically leapt from the train steps. Eric followed at a more dignified pace, scanning the crowd, hands in pockets. He hadn't said they were meeting anyone. He didn't want Marcus getting ideas. But he looked. He couldn't help it. And there she was, Vanessa Carter. Not in her usual monochrome power suit, not even in business casual. She wore faded jeans, clean white sneakers, and a soft green sweater that made her hair look almost golden in the autumn sun. No makeup he could see. Her eyes found his almost immediately. She looked terrified, trying to look like she wasn't. Marcus barreled toward the bounce house before Eric could stop him. Eric smiled, a little helpless, then lifted a hand in greeting. Vanessa walked toward him, slow and measured. She stopped just shy of arm's reach. "Hey." Her voice was quiet, uncertain. "Hey," he answered. She shifted her weight. "You came." "Yeah," promised Marcus. "He looks excited." Eric followed her gaze to where his son was already trying to charm the volunteer into letting him cut the line. "He's persistent." Vanessa smiled, but it was small. She cleared her throat. "Thanks for pushing me to come." "Didn't push. You kind of did." He tilted his head. "You needed it." She didn't argue. She just let out a slow exhale. They stood there for a minute, watching kids shriek with glee, parents sip coffee from paper cups, the wind tossing leaves across the grass in golden arcs. Finally, she spoke. "Eric, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How do you do it?" He glanced at her. "Do what?" "Be this. Be so calm. So good." He huffed a laugh. Shook his head. "I'm not good. I'm just trying. Every day. Because of him." He jerked his chin toward Marcus. "He deserves better than what I had." She went silent, watching Marcus. Eric saw something flicker in her face. Something old and unspoken. "You think it's too late to be better?" she asked finally, voice so low he had to lean in to hear. Eric's heart pulled. He let the question sit, heavy and real. He didn't rush. Didn't throw platitudes at it. "No," he said at last. Simple. Certain. "It's never too late." Vanessa blinked hard. Looked away. Nodded once. Marcus came tearing back, face painted like a tiger, roaring. Vanessa actually jumped, then laughed. A rail laugh. Eric watched it transform her. "Rawr!" Marcus shouted, pouncing at her. She held up her hands. "Oh no, I surrender." She let him tackle her legs gently, and she staggered theatrically, making him giggle so hard he snorted. Eric found himself laughing too, warm and unguarded. Marcus looked up at her. "Who are you?" Vanessa hesitated. Eric watched her carefully. She swallowed. Knelt to be at eye level with the boy. "I'm Vanessa. I work with your dad." Marcus squinted. "Are you his friend?" Vanessa glanced at Eric, fear and hope in her eyes all at once. Eric held her gaze. Nodded. "Yeah, but," he said softly, "she's my friend." Vanessa smiled, watery. "I'd like to be anyway. If that's okay with you." Marcus grinned. "Okay." He grabbed her hand. "Come see the bouncy house." She let him pull her. Eric followed. They spent the afternoon like that, standing in lines, laughing at Marcus's endless questions, sharing greasy fries and overpriced lemonade, watching the sun dip lower and the sky catch fire with gold and orange. At one point, Marcus fell asleep in the grass, tiger face smeared, chest rising and falling in even breaths. Vanessa sat beside Eric, knees tucked to her chest, arms wrapped around them. "He's amazing," she murmured. "Yeah, you did good." Eric shrugged. "Still trying." She glanced at him, voice softer. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not letting me drive that night. For not judging me. For everything after." Eric was quiet. The wind lifted her hair. He wanted to reach out and tuck it behind her ear but didn't. "You're welcome," he said finally. She blinked fast. Smiled. "You know, I don't have to be anywhere tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "You asking me out, Vanessa?" She snorted, then looked embarrassed. "No. I mean maybe. I don't know. I don't want to go back to that house and be alone with my thoughts." Eric's voice dropped. Gentle. "You don't have to." They sat in silence as the park emptied. Marcus snored lightly. The sun sank. Streetlights flickered on. And for the first time in a long, long time, Vanessa Carter felt safe. Because she wasn't alone.